Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks, here to preview Arkansas's game with Kansas. You can catch that on CBS at 4:15 on Saturday. The computers, we use Ken Pomeroy, Bart Torvik, BPI, and Jeff Sagarin. Average out having Kansas as a 2.5-point favorite with a 59% chance to win. Blake, Arkansas looked much better in its opening round matchup. Kansas cruised over Howard in its opening round matchup without its coach, Bill Self. Both teams probably feeling pretty good about where they are heading into this one, which should be a very exciting and probably one of the more talent-laden 1-8 matchups we see in a given year.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. A lot of talent on both sides of the floor here. And, I think there's a lot to look at in this game because, man, it's interesting, the dynamic that's kind of here. You look at Kansas, of course. Bill Self hasn't coached the last couple games. I guess we don't know as we're recording this right now what the scenario will be. I guess we probably need to. I know they said it on something on Thursday.
And he had a stent put in his heart for people who don't know what happened, or it might have been two.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see anything about whether he'll coach in this game. So, yeah. So I mean that's I think significant when you talk about just in an NCAA tournament type setting, and this kind of game against an Arkansas team that has sort of found its way a little bit. I think in that game against Illinois, and so yeah, it's a really interesting matchup because you obviously look at Kansas and I mean, they're pretty good in a lot of areas, and I think those are the kind of teams that that's why they are a number one seed is they just do a lot of things well, and I think what Chris they end up playing the top schedule in the country. I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh yeah, they played what I think 24 games against Quad
Yeah,
1 and 2 teams and went 17-7. I mean, it's crazy
yeah,
the schedule that Kansas played.
yeah. So I mean, clearly a very battle tested team, and I think what else you look at with Kansas, they've got 7 losses this season, all to NCAA tournament teams. So, not a single bad loss anywhere on the board, and I think that can say something about a team too when you get into these survive and advance scenarios where it's winner goes or loser goes home. They obviously are the defending national champion, and they want to carry that forward, and they've certainly got some elite talent on that side of the floor. But so does Arkansas, and I think for me, it's just figuring out, if Arkansas can build on what they did against Illinois. I mean, they absolutely got a shot to win this game. They've got to play. What did I say in the reaction video, Chris? They've got to play to their strengths, and I think a
play
lot
under
of that.
control.
Well, that and to me, this is a game where, and we're going to get in the matchup I know in a second, but this is just like it's similar to A&M. It's not the same, but like Arkansas needs to get off to a great start here because I think if they're chasing, I don't like their chances just because I think that's going to force them to do things that they're not great at. And of course, that means shooting a lot of shots from outside, perhaps to try to get back in a game against a Kansas team that can put up some points. So,
Yeah, game flow went in Arkansas's favor on Thursday. Arkansas controlled most of that game. Let Illinois back in it late with the bad decision or two that maybe end up with Nick Smith on the bench, but got it together. And really, I think the thing that Arkansas did well was just defended so well. I think that Illinois had some problems with Arkansas's physical abilities, and Mitchell inside, doesn't block a ton of shots, but he's just such a big presence there. Illinois was missing stuff at the rim. I don't know if Kansas is going to be vulnerable to those type of things, but Arkansas, when it really had it going on Thursday, looked a lot more like the team preseason we thought it would look like.
yeah, I think it just comes down to, like I said, it's going back to what they were doing early in the season. And again, I think it's really focusing. I know it sounds basic, but like it is focusing on their strengths and playing to that. Like we said, they only shot 11 threes in that game against Illinois. That's great for Arkansas. They got to the free throw line 29 times. Like that is their recipe for success, is to be able to just attack teams and take the great guard play that you have, because they have multiple options. We talked about that, whether it's Black, Smith, Davis, Council, and so forth. Like just take those guys and let them attack, because what happens when you have those guys who can take people off the dribble and try to get to the rim? Well, someone's going to collapse and help. You got somebody open, for an easy shot, maybe somewhere else. There's just so many things can happen when you do that. But if you just stand out and shoot shots on the perimeter, you're not really putting a lot of pressure on the defense, especially as a team that does not shoot great from the perimeter. So I think that's it. And they've got to go at Kansas. And something else to keep in mind here. If you look at Kansas, right, Chris, this is a team that, I mean, and we're talking pure production here, but also minutes wise. This is, I mean, not to discount the guys that come off the bench and play 7, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes here, but they are really
Not
leaning
as
on 5
deep.
guys. I
Yeah.
mean, they're leaning on 5 guys here into, like, the burger place, Chris. I mean, that's what they're leaning on here. Because I mean, this is one of those where, again,
Didn't mean
if
that.
you're it's okay. If you're Arkansas and you're in attack mode and you can get some of those guards in foul trouble, right? If you can get Grady Dick in foul trouble, if you can get Kevin McCullough in foul trouble, um, that significantly changes, I think, how Kansas can play. But it's not to say it completely changes it, because anytime you got a guy like Jalen Wilson, right? Who, as we always say, if you're going to be a team that wins it all, I think you got to have a guy. Like, and they've got a guy. I mean, Jalen Wilson is that guy. Like, he is tremendous in terms of his ability to score the ball in a variety of ways. And I think, but think about that, right? It's just, if Arkansas's guards can put the pressure on Kansas and force them to play defense here and to really defend, basically say, hey, we're going to attack you and try to make you stop us. Kansas, from an efficiency standpoint, is one of the better defensive teams out there. But I do think that is a big priority here, because they're not deep from a production standpoint. They got guys who can play off the bench, but they're not giving them the same type of production you see 1 through 5. So, or 1 through 6, whatever the number is. So I think that's something to look at here in terms of how Arkansas approaches this game.
Well, it's an interesting Kansas team, right? Because you've got Kevin McCullough has been tremendous. Wilson has been an All-American. Grady Dick is going to be a first-round NBA draft pick here in a few months. So Kansas, this just in, Kansas always has talent. But if you look at the predictive metrics with Kansas this year, Kansas always ranks up there in resume metrics, because Kansas plays the Big 12 and then plays anybody and everybody out of conference, right? So Kansas has always tested coming into the NCAA tournament. But you start looking at Kansas and KenPom, and it doesn't look like the same team that we've seen in past years. I'm looking at 2-point percentage, 148. 66. 3-point percentage, 148. Free throw percentage, 174. Now, Kansas is 25th in adjusted offensive efficiency, and not as high as it normally is, probably because of those shooting percentages. Effective field goal percentage, 71st in the country. Look, Kansas has always got talent. You pointed it out, but in addition to depth, it is not as efficient an offense. And look, this is a beauty pageant. We're comparing Kansas to past Kansas teams, but you kind of used to seeing Kansas, it feels like to me, in top 10 offensive efficiency in the country, and that's not quite what this team is, albeit it is very, very talented.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's, there's probably less room for error on this team, and that's still, again, when you just think about what they've got. I mean, there's, that still puts them ahead of a lot of teams, even with that. But I do think it is significant just to look at, kind of their rotation and how many guys play the number of minutes. And I think that's because, like, I've gone back and looked at some of this. Like, I think the Texas game is probably kind of I don't know if, I mean, they lost by 20 in that game, right? So I think the minutes can be a little bit, in terms of the distribution in that game. Hey, I mean, they weren't going to win that game. But, like, if you go back in the Big 12 tournament, like, look at the Iowa State game, right? Harris plays 36 minutes. Dick plays 36 minutes. Wilson plays 36 minutes. Adams plays 34 minutes. Like, I mean, that's the thing, right? And for a team like Arkansas, I think this is one of the bigger storylines we're going to have in this game coming out of it. If Arkansas wins, I think is going to be Arkansas just went out and played their game with the guards that were able to drive, either hit mid-range shots, hit shots closer to the rim, didn't settle for a lot of jump shots, but in the process, they put the pressure on Kansas defensively and got player A in foul trouble or player B in foul trouble. And all of a sudden, Kansas's entire rotation changed. And, that all of a sudden opened up a little bit of daylight for Arkansas to be able to go this way or go that way. So, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's fair. It's a different Kansas team. Um, I just think look, you don't you don't get to being a number one seed and not have a bad loss the entire season for any reason. Like there's a reason why they got to that point. But if you're asking me, do I think they are more susceptible to being upset, kind of in this particular setting, maybe than they were last year? Yes, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, this is a spot where I want to pick Arkansas, but I just don't think I can. Arkansas just never could put it together with any regularity. We get little flashes of things. We saw it in the SEC tournament where for about 3 straight halves, we're looking at each other as we're sitting on press row watching the team going, hey, this is a team that's kind of starting to play like we thought it would. And then came the second half against Texas A&M. I just have not been able to trust Arkansas, and shooting is part of it, enough to get to where we thought the Hogs could be. And look, some of that was injuries and maybe lack of cohesion that came from getting guys back late. But for whatever reason, and look, Kansas can be erratic in the tournament, Blake. We've seen that before too. I had Kansas winning this game before the tournament, and I think I'm going to stick with my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people obviously probably had the one seed advancing here, whether they played Arkansas or Illinois. And yeah, I mean, I probably, yeah, I know I had the same in my bracket, but my bracket gets busted very early, so it's like you have to just throw everything out once you, I think, actually see teams play. And I do have a lot more confidence in Arkansas in this spot than I did entering the tournament, and I think it was because of, again, were you just so wowed by Arkansas against Illinois that they go into this as the favorite or something? I don't think that's the case, but I saw enough of Arkansas in that game, that the old Arkansas, right, the one that we fully expected if they were going to, be a top 15 team or something this season. We saw a lot of elements, I think, in that game that made you say, okay, it's still there. It's just, can they put it together again? They did it against Illinois. Can they put it together against a team that, you know, may be the best team in the country? If it's not Alabama, it's probably Kansas. So can Arkansas do that? And I think there are things that, like I said, in this matchup specifically, they have to get off to a good start. Like, I mean, and I know that sounds, again, very simplistic, but they cannot afford to me to get down, for Kansas to come out and hit 3 threes early, and all of a sudden all Arkansas's down 10 midway through the first half or something. I don't like them having to play catch up, um, because I don't think that plays well into what they can do. Both teams get up and down the floor. Like, these are two teams that play at a pretty good tempo, so I think there is opportunity for points here. Um, but I also don't know that I would love Arkansas getting in a run and gun type game with Kansas, because I don't. Again, I think one team is probably better at that right now than the other team is. Although, I mean, Kansas not the best shooting team. That they're not just overly, tremendous from outside or anything, but um, they're still a team that can hit shots. And I think, once again, you look at kind of Kansas's numbers, Chris, something that really stands out when you look at, like, their, obviously, field goal percentage, they've been pretty good, but you look at their 2-point percentage numbers. Against Howard, I don't know how much you put into that, right? They shot 57% from two, 68% from two against Iowa State, 61% against West Virginia. Look at some of the other games. Baylor, they shot 64% from two. Oklahoma State, 63% from two. I mean, Arkansas is a pretty gritty defensive team. Can they get those same type of percentages and same type of looks against Arkansas? I think that's fair to question, because Arkansas is a team, as we talked about, has size. They've got quick guards that can, steal the ball, force turnovers. Um, yeah, like, I think this is more fascinating than most people may give Arkansas credit for. I'm kind of with you, and, like, I mean, if you're going on your bracket, maybe you're just advancing the team you already have, but There's something about this game, man. I don't know. I don't know, Chris. I don't know if it's the same feeling we got last year with the Must Bus against the Zags. I don't know if it's the same feeling, but for all of our longtime Arkansas watchers, if you remember, no one was giving you a chance last year except for about two people, and you're watching them on the screen right now. In that Gonzaga game, we said, guys, there's just something about this matchup that I think there's something there. Um, I think there's something there, Chris, in this game, but I really want to see Arkansas put it all together. I think before I could probably go that direction. But I think we also probably picked Gonzaga last year too. But we were more on the train of we are giving Arkansas much more of a chance than anyone else did. Um, Kansas is just so good offensively and defensively, and
Look, the computers
it's a close,
are,
yeah.
are,
Like,
are interesting. Okay, Ken Pomeroy has Kansas by 3. Bart Torvik has Kansas by 1.5.
yeah,
PPI has Kansas by 2.6. Jeff Sagarin has Kansas by 3 even. I mean,
yeah.
this is a toss-up game according to the computers. Take that for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I like what the computers spit out. Sometimes I don't. But
Yeah.
if you believe in that this is telling you this is a one possession game.
I'll tell you, here's all I want to see in this game. I want to see Arkansas play to its potential, because if Arkansas does that, it can win this game. But the problem, as we said, we've seen Arkansas at times not play to its potential, and what can happen, I think, against Kansas, you know, can be very similar to the types of games we've seen. Let's say against that home game against Kentucky, for instance. Games like that I think you could run into a buzzsaw with Kansas, where they can just come out, and you do have a guy like Jalen Wilson. Obviously, you've got Grady Dick, who can knock down shots, and everybody else. So if Kansas is coming out clicking, they're hitting threes, it will be a challenge. But just like we said last year, kind of in this scenario for Arkansas against a top seed, I do think, like you said, the computers have positive momentum towards Arkansas in this one. I think you're really looking at the talent wise. Arkansas can do this. It's just, can they put together that 40-minute game that it's going to take to beat Kansas? Because this season, that has been a hard thing to do. And like we said, Kansas is a team that's pretty consistent for the most part. Now, they've had a couple of those lapses. We said they just lost a 20-point game to Texas in the tournament. The Bill Self factor. There's a lot of intangibles here in play that I think if you get anything similar or better to what you got from Arkansas against Illinois, I think Arkansas has absolutely got a shot here. But it will not be easy, because this is a good Kansas team. And man, Arkansas's got to get off to a good start here. They got to.
We went 18 minutes.
Well, I mean,
18
hey,
minutes for one
look at
basketball game, but
Arkansas
it's
fans.
March.
Hey, we went
Right.
20-something minutes on A&M Penn State, and our analysis turned out to be not too far off in that one.
Yeah.
Maybe, Arkansas fans, here's what we want, because we don't have a lot of Arkansas fans that'll watch this. Like, we give us your thoughts in the comments. Like, what's your feeling on this game? Give us your breakdown, how you're feeling going into it. I'm very curious to know where you guys stand with this one, because I do think that not just Arkansas fans. I think there are a lot of people out there that maybe we brought more people on the bandwagon this year to give Arkansas a chance in this one, but they've got to play. They've got to play a perfect game. I mean, they really do, like, pretty much close to a perfect game, I think, because we've seen how good Kansas can be, but we've also seen them slip a couple times. So it's not. I'm excited for this one, man. I think this could be a fun one. So
me too. All right. If you're watching and you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It's just basically a follow. That helps us be able to monetize this. Helps fund my cold medicines and caffeine, which I'm needing a lot of right now. If you want a sure thing in your bracket every March, or like, not a sure thing, but pick me to get sick in mid-March around the tournament. It just seems to happen so
listen,
much.
Chris, you know what else that can fund? And we may need to bring this back right now, because this may give Arkansas fans the mojo they need to come out victorious in this game. It can also fund the store account to buy a little bit of the corn nuts, maybe a zero bar. The longtime Arkansas people will understand these remarks.
They'll get that.
But the new people won't. But just know that anytime I mention the corn nuts and the zero bar, you're in good shape. So
that's right.
You're welcome, Arkansas fans. Must bus.
The
Gassed
Must Bus
up.
is careening around the country right now. It's gassed up. It's ready to go. When we talk about Arkansas next, and we will talk about Arkansas, will it be coming off a win? Will we be coming off the season being over? I don't know. But either way, we'll be here to talk about it. He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Bearded Iris. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again